My girlfriend's single friends persuaded her to stage a fake breakup test on me to make me more committed, but it completely backfired when I decided to end our relationship instead. I'm 31 years old and have been with my girlfriend Maya for 4 years. We've been living together for the past year and I genuinely thought we were building something solid together. We split bills, take turns cooking, and have established this comfortable routine that works for both of us. Sure, we're not teenagers anymore writing love letters every day, but I considered us a stable, mature couple heading toward marriage eventually. What I didn't know is that Maya had been confiding in her circle of single girlfriends about feeling like our relationship lacked excitement. These friends, all recently out of long-term relationships themselves, apparently convinced her that I was getting too comfortable and that she needed to create some drama to reignite the spark between us. About 2 months ago, Maya started acting completely out of character. She began mentioning how she wasn't sure if she was ready for such a serious commitment and questioning whether we were moving too fast by living together. At first, I thought she was just having normal relationship anxiety, so I tried to be understanding and give her space to work through her feelings. But then she started talking about wanting to take a break from our relationship to figure things out. She said she'd been thinking about what she really wanted in life and wasn't sure if settling down at 28 was the right choice for her. She mentioned wanting to travel more, experience being single again, and not feeling ready for the domestic life we'd built together. I was devastated but tried to be supportive. I told her I understood if she needed time and that I'd rather she be honest about her feelings than stay in a relationship she wasn't sure about. I suggested we could talk to a counselor or take things slower, but she insisted that what she needed was actual time apart to gain perspective on what she wanted. During this conversation, she was crying and saying how much she cared about me but that she'd been feeling trapped lately and needed to remember what it felt like to be independent. She talked about possibly getting her own apartment and suggested we take a month-long break from seeing each other to really think about whether we wanted the same things. She even went into specific details about how she'd been feeling suffocated by our daily routines and how she missed the excitement of not knowing what each day would bring. Maya said she loved me but wasn't sure if she was in love with me anymore, which absolutely crushed me. She mentioned that her friends had been telling her that she was too young to settle down and that she should experience more of life before committing to marriage. I spent the next 3 weeks in complete emotional turmoil. I started looking at smaller apartments since our current lease was in both our names and I figured I'd need to move out. I had to tell my family that Maya and I were taking a break, which was humiliating because they'd already started asking about when we might get engaged. My mom was especially concerned and kept calling to check on me because she could hear how devastated I was. My sister offered to let me stay at her place if I needed somewhere to go, and my dad awkwardly tried to give me advice about how sometimes relationships just run their course. The whole experience was mortifying because I'd been so confident about our future together that I'd already started researching engagement rings. The worst part was how Maya seemed to be thriving during this supposed crisis period. She was going out constantly with her friends, posting pictures of herself at bars and restaurants I'd never been to, and generally appearing to live her best single life. Meanwhile, I was barely eating and couldn't concentrate at work because I kept wondering if the woman I'd planned to propose to next year was about to disappear from my life forever. I started losing weight because I had no appetite, and my coworkers noticed that I seemed distracted and moody all the time. My boss even pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay at home because my performance had noticeably declined. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, unable to focus on anything except the possibility that my relationship was ending. Maya would text me occasionally during this break, sending mixed signals about missing me but also talking about how refreshing it felt to have freedom again. She'd say things like I'm starting to remember who I am outside of a relationship and maybe we both needed this space to appreciate what we have. These messages would give me hope for a few hours, but then she'd post another picture of herself out having fun and I'd spiral back into despair. I found myself obsessively checking her social media accounts, analyzing every photo and caption for clues about her emotional state. When she posted a picture of herself laughing with friends at some trendy restaurant, I'd spend hours wondering if she was happier without me. When she shared a quote about independence and self-discovery, I'd interpret it as confirmation that she was planning to end things permanently. After about 3 weeks of this torture, I'd made peace with the idea that our relationship was probably over. I'd even started browsing dating apps, not because I was ready to meet someone new, but because I was trying to prepare myself for the reality of being single again at 31. Then Maya's friend Jessica called me out of nowhere, completely intoxicated, rambling about how proud she was of Maya for finally taking control of her relationship and how the plan was working perfectly because I was finally showing how much I actually cared. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I pressed her for details. That's when Jessica revealed that the entire breakup scare was fabricated. Maya's friend group had convinced her that the best way to get me to step up and propose was to make me think I might lose her. They'd coached her on what to say to make it seem like she was having genuine doubts about our future together. According to Jessica, they'd been planning this relationship intervention for months after Maya complained to them that I seemed too comfortable and wasn't making any moves toward engagement. Her friends convinced her that men need to be reminded of what they could lose in order to take action, so they helped her craft this entire scenario about needing space and questioning our relationship. Jessica drunkenly admitted that they'd been monitoring my social media to see how I was reacting and celebrating every sign that I was becoming more desperate to win Maya back. They thought it was hilarious that I'd started sending flowers to Maya's workplace and planning elaborate date nights to try to convince her not to leave me. I hung up on Jessica and sat in my car for an hour, trying to process what I'd just learned. When Maya came home that evening, I confronted her with what Jessica had told me. She immediately broke down crying and admitted everything. She said it had started as a simple plan to motivate me toward engagement, but it had spiraled into something much bigger than she intended. Maya explained that her friends had convinced her that our relationship was in a rut and that I was taking her for granted. They told her that comfortable relationships often lead to men never proposing because they're getting all the benefits of marriage without the commitment. The fake breakup was supposed to create urgency and make me realize I needed to act before I lost her. She apologized profusely and said she never meant for it to go on so long or cause me so much pain. She claimed she'd been planning to end the charade soon and that she was actually ready to get back together because the break had made her realize how much she loved me and wanted to be with me. But I was absolutely furious. I told her that instead of manipulating me into proposing, she'd actually accomplished the opposite. I couldn't believe that someone who claimed to love me would put me through weeks of emotional agony just to test my commitment level. If she wanted to get engaged, she could have simply talked to me about it instead of creating an elaborate deception. The more I thought about it, the more betrayed I felt. I realized that every conversation we'd had during those 3 weeks had been based on lies. When she'd cried about feeling trapped, she was acting. When she'd talked about needing space, she was following a script. When she'd said she wasn't sure if she was in love with me anymore, she was deliberately trying to hurt me to get the reaction her friends wanted. I thought about all the sleepless nights I'd spent wondering what I'd done wrong in our relationship, all the self-doubt I'd experienced about whether I was good enough for her, all the anxiety I'd felt about our future together. She'd watched me go through all of that emotional turmoil while knowing it was completely manufactured for her entertainment and that of her friends. Maya kept insisting that her friends had convinced her it was the only way to get through to me and that she'd been wrong to listen to them. She begged me to understand that everything she'd done was because she loved me and wanted us to have a future together. She said the plan had backfired because she'd realized during our fake break that she didn't actually want space at all. She even tried to turn the situation around on me, saying that if I really loved her, I'd be able to forgive one mistake and that my willingness to throw away 4 years over this proved that maybe I wasn't as committed as I claimed to be. This manipulation attempt only made me angrier because it showed she still didn't understand the fundamental problem with what she'd done. I told her that the trust between us was completely broken and that I couldn't imagine marrying someone who thought emotional manipulation was an appropriate relationship strategy. She'd spent weeks watching me suffer and worry about our future while knowing the entire crisis was manufactured. That level of deception wasn't something I could just forgive and move past. Maya promised she'd never listen to her friends again and suggested we go to couples counseling to work through the trust issues. But I'd already made up my mind. I told her that I was done with the relationship and that she'd gotten her wish for space, just not in the way she'd planned. Over the next few days, Maya's friends started calling me to defend their actions and convince me to forgive Maya. Rachel insisted that they'd only been trying to help Maya get what she wanted and that their plan had actually worked because I'd shown how much I cared. Sophia told me I was being unreasonable and that Maya had learned her lesson about listening to bad advice. But their phone calls only made things worse because they revealed more details about how calculated the entire scheme had been. Rachel mentioned that they'd been planning this intervention for months and had researched different strategies online before settling on the fake breakup approach. Sophia admitted that they'd been keeping a timeline of my reactions and adjusting Maya's behavior based on how I responded to different triggers. The most disturbing revelation came from Jessica, who called to apologize but ended up making things worse by explaining how much thought they'd put into psychological manipulation. She said they'd studied articles about attachment theory and relationship psychology to make their plan more effective. They'd specifically chosen the timing of Maya's supposed crisis to coincide with the stress of our lease renewal because they thought it would make me more desperate to resolve things quickly. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. These women had treated my emotions like a game and had encouraged Maya to deceive me for months. They'd turned our relationship into an experiment and had been entertained by my distress when I thought I was losing the person I wanted to marry. I also started realizing that this probably wasn't the first time Maya had been manipulative in our relationship. Looking back, I could identify other instances where she'd used emotional manipulation to get what she wanted, but I'd always rationalized them as normal relationship dynamics. The fake breakup was just the most extreme example of a pattern I'd been too blind to see. I moved out of our shared apartment within a week. Maya continued texting and calling, begging for another chance and promising that she'd do anything to rebuild my trust. She said she understood why I was angry but that ending a 4-year relationship over one mistake seemed extreme. The moving process was emotionally brutal because every item I packed reminded me of our shared history and the future I'd thought we were building together. I had to divide up furniture we'd bought together, books we'd shared, and kitchen items we'd accumulated over the years. Maya tried to use this as another opportunity to convince me to stay, pointing out how much we'd built together and how difficult it would be to start over. She also tried a different approach, suggesting that we could use this experience to make our relationship stronger. She said that now that we'd been through a major crisis, we'd be better equipped to handle future challenges and that our trust could be rebuilt stronger than before. She even suggested that the fake breakup had revealed how much we really meant to each other, since I'd fought so hard to save our relationship. But every conversation with Maya just reinforced my decision to leave. She kept trying to minimize what she'd done by calling it a mistake or a lapse in judgment, but I saw it as a fundamental betrayal that revealed her true character. The fact that she'd been able to maintain the deception for weeks while watching me suffer showed a level of emotional detachment that I found deeply disturbing. The problem is that I don't see it as one mistake. I see it as a fundamental character flaw that allowed her to deceive someone she claimed to love for the sake of manipulating them into a proposal. The fact that she thought this was an acceptable way to handle relationship concerns tells me everything I need to know about her judgment and values. I also couldn't stop thinking about what other deceptions she might be capable of in the future. If she could orchestrate such an elaborate scheme over something as important as our engagement, what would she do if we faced other relationship challenges? Would she manipulate our children if we had kids together? Would she lie to me about financial decisions or career choices if she thought it would get her what she wanted? My family and friends are divided on whether I made the right choice. Some think I should have given Maya another chance since her intentions weren't malicious and she was genuinely trying to strengthen our relationship. Others agree that what she did was unforgivable manipulation that would have destroyed our trust permanently. My brother thinks I'm being too harsh and that all relationships involve some level of game playing and manipulation. He pointed out that Maya hadn't actually cheated or done anything that caused permanent damage, and he suggested that I was throwing away a good relationship over hurt pride. My sister, on the other hand, was horrified by what Maya had done and said she couldn't imagine putting someone she loved through that kind of emotional torture. My parents were similarly split. My mom thought I should give Maya another chance because she believed people could learn from their mistakes and grow. She worried that I was being too rigid in my expectations and that I might regret losing someone I'd loved for 4 years. My dad, however, supported my decision and said that trust was the foundation of any successful marriage and that Maya had proven she couldn't be trusted. The reactions from our mutual friends were also mixed. Some thought I was overreacting and that the fake breakup was just a misguided attempt to improve our relationship. They pointed out that Maya's plan had actually revealed how much I cared about her and